Yeah, in the year when Cicero wrote the Philippics, in 44 and 43, the last 2 years of his life, the Roman Republic was in a very difficult situation. And we know that because soon afterwards it broke down and turned into the Principate. And what happened in 44 was, as you may know, at the Ides of March 44, Julius Caesar was assassinated, and that obviously affected the setup quite significantly. Julius Caesar in that year was one of the consuls, and the other consul was Mark Antony. So after Julius Caesar died, Mark Antony was left as a sole consul. And Cicero regretted all the time that Mark Antony wasn't killed as well. But Caesar's assassins thought they were only going to kill Caesar because he wanted to be dictator, but not Mark Antony. So Mark Antony obviously seized this situation and wanted to assume all power for himself now that he was the sole consul. A person called Dolabella was then elected as a replacement consul, but he didn't really have anything to say or any power. But what also happened was that Caesar had an adoptive son who was called, or is called in modern parlance, Octavian, and later he became the Emperor Augustus. And Octavian, because he had this kind of family link to Julius Caesar, was also laying a claim to power or influence in the Roman state, and came back from Greece where he was on a kind of study tour at the time. And that obviously meant that there were two men laying claim to Caesar's legacy and assuming power in the Roman Republic. And Cicero's reaction was that he thought Mark Antony was absolutely evil because he was a man who had a bit of a dodgy past and had never done any kind of responsible job in the right way, at least in Cicero's view. Whereas he thought that Octavian, who was just a teenager basically at the time, was a young man who could be influenced, although he didn't quite like his connection to Caesar, but he thought this young man is quite promising and I can influence him. So his strategy was to convince the Senate, who was the most powerful body in Rome at the time, to do everything they could against Mark Antony and to support Octavian, although Octavian at that time didn't have any official position in the state. And so over the course of the 14 Philippics, Cicero followed a kind of step-by-step tactic in making lots of speeches before the Senate and some before the people, in convincing them to eliminate Mark Antony, take every power away from him, and then eventually fight him in an armed conflict and get rid of him. And at the same time support Octavian by ratifying what he did, giving him an army and things like that, so that he could also oppose Mark Antony and eventually take over. Cicero's hope was that as soon as Antony was eliminated, and one could go back to the traditional republican system with two consuls and the Senate in the usual way, because he and many of his contemporaries didn't realize that there were fundamental problems in the administration of the republic at the time. Cicero did have some successes along the way, but in the end his strategy didn't work out, for the simple reason that at some point Octavian was powerful enough to ignore Cicero and then unite with Mark Antony, and they together with a third person took over power towards the end of the year, and one of their first actions was to put Cicero's name along with the names of many other influential people on a list of people they wanted to have killed because they were a nuisance and obstacles in their plans, and so they did. So although Cicero was successful immediately after each speech in a way, he wasn't successful in the long run because he didn't quite foresee the consequences of this behavior. And then over the next decade or so, these developments led to the change of the Principate. As I said, Octavian became Emperor Augustus, and after that you have a series of Roman emperors and you never go back to the system of the Roman Republic.